initially I was thinking that leadership is, it's you're managing a team. Really, once I got to the crux of it, it was about leadership. It's about influence and influencing people. So that was sort of one of the subtitles of the book, is that leadership is a mindset. Chris Brindley talked to me about the PI model. And PI stands for performance, image, execution. In any field, what you're trying to do, be good. That's the first. There's people that shout about things, but their product's no good.
Yeah.
And so I've always enjoyed, working with you, interacting with you, and it's always had a good result.
We did your audiobook actually, didn't we?
We did.
I remember having you under a duvet at one stage to go through one of
We
the
might need to
chapters.
clarify now what that exactly
Well, it wasn't me,
means.
it was you and
That's
Andy
some
under a
statement
duvet,
to make that.
Yeah, it was you and Andy under a duvet. So we don't really start these with any given title or anything, but what we do need to know, and the people that are listening to this need to know who you are and why you're here.
Right, okay.
So off you go.
Have we started?
We've started.
We started. Wow, just like that. Well, I would say that for 20 years now, 20 years, I've been fascinated with human behaviour, psychology, and high performance for 20 years. 16 of those years, I've been teaching, coaching, writing, sharing those ideas.
And for those that don't know who you are, your name is?
Martin Robert Hull.
So look, we always like to start these with, how the hell do you know me? How did we meet? And all that sort of thing. Now, I remember it, and it was the best day of my life. But I don't know, how did you remember it?
I can't remember exactly I know what it was about, but I can't remember how. Did you email me or?
So yeah, way back in my uni days, I was doing a project about superstition in sport.
That was we had a phone call the first time.
I did my research on sports psychology and things like that, and your name popped up.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, this sounds interesting. I want to speak to this guy.
And I was like, let me talk to him about superstitions, because I had some real sort of thoughts and ideas on it at the time. And I remember probably just absolutely giving you an avalanche of thoughts down the phone. And I don't know what you were thinking after. You'd be like, oh yeah, this guy kind of knows his stuff about it.
I loved it. I loved the way that we were talking about how sometimes it's a barrier to success and all this kind of thing. And that actually, when you watch those sports stars doing all those things before they even get onto the field of play and all this, it's actually, it's just fascinating that actually get rid of all of that.
And I remember at the time, it wasn't around that time, I was working with someone, a footballer, on this, and I'd read a story about Tim Henman from probably 10 years prior, and once he got into the habit of he was late for a game, he had a shower, and then he went out and I think he beat Sampras or somebody, and then from then on he believed that he needed to have a shower at the courts before he went and played, because he'd play his best tennis, until it just became like an absolute nuisance, like being late on court. And then he just sort of questioned, actually, is this really the key to me performing well? Having a shower just before a match? No. So, yeah, I can remember our conversation. I can still remember bits of our conversation.
I don't know, back then you were thinking, right, well, that's him done. I'll never have to worry about him again for the rest
of
my life.
And then you didn't go away.
I just didn't go away, did I?
Didn't go away. And, here we are. How long ago is that? It's 10 years.
It's got to be 10 years, isn't it? It's got to be 10 years. I
think
think
at least, yeah.
We've experienced some great things together, I think, as well. And I think I remember I did a documentary again whilst I was at uni on the elite performance
the sacrifices people make.
Yeah, that was an interesting little piece of work as well. Yeah, that, because you look at these elite performing athletes and the kind of what makes an elite performer an elite performer. Do you know what I mean? And the sacrifices that they make to be the best at something that they do. And I thought that was a really good insight into how some people who are kind of at the top of the game, they don't see that they're sacrificing anything because it's just normality.
Yeah.
And then that takes us into the conversations around environment and how we perceive our environment, which then takes us into a very amazing book that you wrote that I absolutely love.
You got it here.
It's around here somewhere.
I thought you were going to pick it up then.
I know,
You picked up your brew instead.
I picked up a cup of tea instead for those that are watching it. But yeah, how leaders make it happen.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, so that was my second book. And I think for the first 5 years of starting my business, I tended to work more with like individuals and teams, but it was all around performance. And what I found after a pattern of teams in an organization really struggled to perform beyond the level of the leadership that was in that organization. This was a pattern that kept coming up. I was hearing it from clients and things, and I'd not really done much sort of delved into leadership and the psychology and the behaviors and practices around leadership. So that started the curiosity. So then I spent the next sort of 2 or 3 years reading and sharing ideas, and then I brought it together in a book, 2017, that was How Leaders Make It Happen. And yeah, since then I've been doing it. Like now, obviously, you can do all of the level, helping people optimize their own performance. But if the leadership level's a blocker, then it just becomes a ceiling. So that's how the book came about. And yeah, and one of the big insights I got from researching and writing that book was that my perceptions about leadership changed. So initially I was thinking that leadership is, you're managing a team. You've got people you're responsible for. And what I realized is actually, no, it's not. Everyone is a leader in their own way. And sometimes you might be a leader in your particular expertise or your field. But really, once I got to the crux of it, it was about leadership. It's about influence and influencing people. And we're all doing that. We're influencing people all the time with our thoughts, our actions, how we treat people, and so that happens for every single individual, no matter what level you are, no matter whether it's an ambition in your career or not. So that was sort of one of the subtitles of the book, is that leadership is a mindset. It's not a position. It's a mindset. It's not a title. It's just a way of thinking and a way of behaving.
There's lots of really great stuff in that book. And I think one of the things that I kind of liked about reading it was I was definitely recognizing some of the things that I do a lot of, which was great, because it kind of reinforced that I'm not a disaster as a gaffer, which was great, because leadership can be quite lonely sometimes as well, and being in charge can be quite lonely sometimes and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I was recognizing traits and things in my just natural behavior and that natural instinct of what I am, and that was good to see that was recognized. But one of the big things that I took away from the book, and I was wondering if we could talk about this as well, is how we perceive our environment around us. And actually we have a choice to decide on our consumption of that environment, how we decide we could be in a horrible hellhole somewhere, but actually that's only how we perceive that hellhole, and we decide how that hellhole influences us. Actually, if we are strong enough to then change what our perception of that environment is, then that can change. Am I getting this right? I'm hoping I'm getting this bit right. But that kind of changes our way, that how we then tackle the positions that we're in.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about our perceptions, how many perceptions do we have of various things? What's a good environment? What's not a good environment? We have millions of perceptions that we collect over time. And what you find is that, how many people are really fortunate enough to build all of these really positive perceptions. And what I say about people is, we can look at all of the different things that influence us, from environment to other people to circumstances, things we have no control over. We're born into, where the opportunity to go and work in an environment. Certainly when I was coming into the world of work, I wasn't cognizant of that, of choosing a right environment. You just go and get a job. So we find ourselves in all of these different environments and situations, and many things are outside of our control. But the most impactful perception of all is the perceptions we have of ourselves. And I think that's the bit you're referring to, is you can be in a certain environment, there may be blockers, that it may be difficult, there's obstacles in your way that making it more hard to achieve what you want. But then the perception you have of yourself and your own capability and ability to overcome the difficult moments, the hurdles, or the barriers in that environment, That's the key, because that determines whether you find a way or you just give in and you become passive. And a lot of people do. They just sort of, stop trying because, and that, that term is learned helplessness, where we try something over and over again. And some the examples I talked about in the book were like, there's lots, but for example, if you put a flea in a jar, this is one of the sort of most common. You put a flea in a jar, and it will and it can jump 100 times the height of the jar. But you put a lid on it, and it jumps a couple of times, and then take the lid off, and it will never jump again. Try and jump out of the jar. It's learned helplessness, and so that also happens to people. And so that perception of self and the perception, that has more influence on whether we overcome our environments and the obstacles than anything else.
It's, I find that difficult sometimes. Somebody can look at me from the outside and see Badgering Coombs and see the success, and they see the success, because I don't see it all the time. Now, you've known me for long enough now, so you know the struggle that I have.
Absolutely.
And it's all right to tell everybody about it. It's no holds barred interview. You're all right. You see it in me sometimes. I will minimize past successes because I'm not, I don't know.
Yeah.
And again, I suffer from that. So you hear this phrase, imposter syndrome stuff. I don't think it's that. It's something else. It's a version of that, I think, with me. It's almost like, what is success? And you've asked me before, what does success look like? And I've gone away and I've collapsed. I
can't define
it.
Yeah.
And why is that? What is the reasons for that? And I struggle with that all the time. And, from the outside, we might look like a successful business. I might look like a successful leader, and all that kind of stuff. But internally, I'm kind of, well, am I? I'm not questioning that.
You and everyone else.
Yeah.
Me included.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, because I remember in the very early years of my journey, I heard someone repeat a quote from a famous athlete who said, I think he'd just won an Olympic Games, and it was Daley Thompson. And he said, it took me 16 years to become an overnight success. Yeah. So people haven't seen that I've failed at however many Olympic Games before, done 4 cycles, and I've become a success. It took me 16 years, that's quite relevant and pertinent to me right now, because I think I've been doing this now. I've been set up doing this for 16 years. And I can tell, like, those early years, it was just doggedness, persistence, trying to, just find a way, and and so the roller coaster of difficulties, of emotions, of doubts, of wanting to give up, of thinking it won't happen, of your family and friends saying, how many countless conversations I had with people that were just like, is this going to work, Martin? Like, it's just, not going to work, but then and how long things can take. But if it's a worthwhile pursuit, then that's the sacrifice you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so you've got to start out with a vision for what you want. It's a belief in something, a passion, that's what I believe I can do. And that doesn't mean that you believe it every single day, because you really don't, do you? Yeah. We've had those conversations plenty of times, but it's there and it doesn't go away.
That belief in what it is as well changes over time as well. There's not all that changing over time, because ultimately the path, that journey that you're on to succeed, or whatever that success is, as long as you're on that journey to do it, it's better than not being on that journey to do it. That's how I see it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's quite funny, because obviously you start off with Badgering Coombs, you start off building a business, and then all of a sudden these people join you who become badgers, and then it all becomes about them. Yeah. And it becomes less about you, and it becomes less about that, and it becomes about their success.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
so there's no end to it. But the bit you're talking about is, well, there's 2 things. One is progress. And when we're making progress, we feel happier, because we're making progress towards something. So progress equals happy. It's a feeling of, actually, I'm progressing. No one wants to stand still. We feel like when we're either growing or, we're retrieving it. We want to be progressing. That's built into human nature. But the bit you're talking about as well, of that, well, what is success? It's always the next thing. It's always the next thing. That it's important to manage that, because that happens for a lot of ambitious people. And one term of looking at that is it's positive dissatisfaction. That you're dissatisfied with but in a positive way. It's you're striving for more to be better, but that can also become unhealthy if we don't manage it. If you're constantly striving to the point where you work yourself into the ground, we've talked about this before, but like working to actually no, get the balance, and that's something you've struggled with. It's like getting the balance. You not alone. How many people I know and I've worked with that struggle with that, because the ambition that got to be more, got to be better, positively dissatisfied, but actually it's not. That isn't a nice journey all the time.
No.
That can be difficult.
No,
And
as a owner of a company, and you have all these mouths to feed, and all
it's there in the back of the mind all of the time.
All the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
Absolutely.
And
it took me a long time to even just have a weekend. It took me years, honestly, years to. And by have a weekend, what I mean is actually not think about my business more than 50 times a day over the weekend.
Yeah. Well, I at some point think, and I don't know when that point is going to be, but that, I mean, to be fair, since the knee operation and things like that, the guys have taken over, they've taken ownership. And I think we talk about ownership a lot of Badgering Coups. We talk about leadership, ownership, and intent. And I think we call it the Badger oil, this thing that greases the machine and all that sort of thing. But the ownership that these guys take on everything they do is remarkable. It's, they don't, you never hear that, it's not my job. It's always their job. You know what I mean? There's part of the other thing, the intent that they have to succeed all the time, and the leadership that they have, they all get given this leadership quality. And I'm really lucky that these guys are here doing all that sort of stuff. And that, I think, is why we attract so many fascinating clients to the business, and we get to work with so many amazing people. I mean, we did your audiobook, actually, didn't we?
We did.
I remember having you under a duvet at one stage to go through one of the chapters.
Might need to clarify now what that exactly means.
Well, it wasn't me, it was you and Andy.
That's some statement to make that.
Yeah, it was you and Andy under a duvet. Because we had to redo a couple of chapters, didn't we, and stuff. So
we did.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah. But yeah, and I think we were just talking a bit about this environment thing. Physical environment is one thing, but virtual environments and digital environments another. And I mean, when you start looking at the kind of impact that social media around us does to that, is that putting in a massive pressure on people these days, you think, or is there tips and tricks you think people could use to try and ignore that noise?
Well, of course it puts a massive pressure on it. But like anything, it's about how you manage it. But it's there, and there's no escaping it. There's no getting away from it. Now, some people choose to not engage. But for most businesses, it's an amazing platform and ability to broadcast what you're doing, share, grow, inspire, connect with people. But can it be all-consuming? Absolutely. Can it lead to overwhelm? Absolutely. Can it lead to comparison? Absolutely. Can it send people down a negative spiral? Absolutely. But it can also do the opposite. So it's like anything. It's about how you manage it. And that was coming anyway. But then obviously since COVID and people working more virtually now, and it's become even more complex, but it's part of people's lives even more so. We rely more on technology now than ever. So it's about how you manage it rather than trying to fight it.
Honestly, I mean, this is exactly what we're doing here today. Is the opportunity to create the Badgering series is all about communicating in a different way, not sat here, blurting out endorsements and stuff like this. It's a definitely different way of doing it. It's finding that space to communicate ideas and thoughts in a less intrusive way. Sorry. When you look at some of those social media channels, I mean, TikTok's a good example of its bombardment of content. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, obviously, the older gent in me, there was always a slower way of letting that come to you, and that difference between being able to absorb something at your pace versus having it pushed into you and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I see that some people struggle with that, and being able to regulate that.
Absolutely, and there's documentaries on it with training the brain it wires the brain for dopamine, for the quick fix. And that in our brain, dopamine hits are chemicals in our brain which are addictive, and therefore short, sharp bits of content that are designed to grab people's attention and giving people these quick dopamine hits, and they're getting an instant hit in that present moment. But over the long term, it's using up their cognitive battery. So if you think after you wake up after a good night's sleep, you've got, I use the analogy of, think of your smartphone. You charge your phone overnight, you wake up, you've got 100% battery. Every single time you use it, every little thing that you do, the more intense things you do throughout the day, that battery depletes. The brain works in exactly the same way. The more decisions you make, the more things you think about, the more conversations, the more platforms you look at, the more screens you do, the more tasks you do. All of those things drain the cognitive battery. And then you get home after a day at work and you can't think for yourself. You don't know, someone asks you, what do you want for dinner? You can't answer the question. The decisions overload as, you've tipped, that's it, you've tipped over now. And so managing that, and social plays a big part of that. And so, but, talking about like content that just grabs attention and that can be so easy to just become addicted to. And is it healthy? Is it giving you cognitive energy, or is it depleting it? So managing that as well. Again, it's about how you manage it. And there's various things. Of course, there's things you can do. I do things like I don't have notifications on my phone and various things.
Same.
Because then I can't control what's incoming, but I can control when I go and read and when I access it.
That was one of the biggest things I did, was turn off my notifications. When I did that, brilliant. I was able to then manage my own time. But what you're describing there is when I get home, I'm absolutely exhausted. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't get home until late.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm not really early and stuff like that. And it's there's a lot of pressure there in doing that. But then my dopamine hit, I think, comes from these guys. When these guys are hitting those jobs and they're nailing the tasks and they're getting it done, and I see when they've accomplished phenomenal things. Just recently Tyler went and produced a load of boxing within a couple of months of starting with us, fresh out of uni sort of thing, and he's there doing a multi-camera boxing broadcast. Got Jazz taking care of RF cameras on the side of a women's game and all this. These guys are doing big things, and we don't shout about it enough. We should, I think, shout about it more, but I get my little hits from all of that.
It's interesting that shouting about it. We're in a world, aren't we, at the moment, of people shouting about things, and I don't know. I agree with it, and I like it when people, but it also jars me a bit of the, oh, look, who can get the most attention, and so it's finding that balance in that there are so many people doing great things, but not everyone's shouting about it.
Who's the understated ones? Think about brands for a minute. This is kind of pulling you off on a tangent here, but think about a brand that doesn't shout a lot but is significant. Do you know what I mean? I wonder if that's where, because you think.
Well, I probably, off the top of my head, I probably can't think of because if they're not shouting about it, and that's why people do shout about it. So there's credit in,
normally brandies, like Hein, for example,
but,
they don't shout.
But I'm thinking about social and people shouting about their own achievements and just that's about. I just find that is a balance.
But that competition is so strong.
But that's what we can be lured into, thinking that that's what you need to do now.
If you go back to the market stall days, traders and all that, that's what it was, shouting on the market stall to come and buy me plums. You know what I mean? That's what it was all about. Yeah, the louder you shouted, the more successful your market stall was going to be. And I think marketing and advertising is all centered around that. And I think when you're in an industry that is like that, sometimes you worry that you have to shout the loudest. But then actually, if you're being slightly understated about what you do, but you're doing brilliant things, I think you're right. It's finding that balance, isn't it? So,
and there's different ways to do it. So one of my mentors, Chris Brinley, talked to me about the PI model. And PI stands for performance, image, execution. And the first bit is the most important performance. And that is about, so for me, it's about the first, in any field, what you're trying to do, be good. That's the first, there's people that shout about things and they're shouting for attention, doing what you talk about, but their product's no good.
Yeah.
The first bit is pour all your energy into being really, really, really good at what you do. That has to be the base level. And there are lots of people that are really good at what they do, but then they don't necessarily shout. The second bit is image. Then that's a bit about brand and how people see you, and whether you're a product or you're a service and you're a person, how you're perceived, like your actual image. And then the execution piece is about who knows about it, in fact, I might have it wrong. Chris will tell me off now. I might have the E wrong in this, but the E is about then, like, it's people knowing about that. But there's different ways. You can go into the world on the market and shout about it, or your clients might talk to other clients, and that happens more in my business now. Like, most of my work is referral and word of mouth, and because someone's told, and I still find that is the most powerful source of new business.
Or your friends come around and have a chat with you over a cup of tea and it's in front of a load of cameras as well. That's another way of doing it.
This is another way of doing it, absolutely. But this is a great way of doing that in a way which isn't, I'm trying to put out a post that grabs attention with some clickbait headline, shining a light on something which is really trivial, just so you look at my post and go, hey, I'm great. Oh, by the way, I do this. And again, there's a balance of doing that and doing something which actually is maybe a bit understated, a bit more humble, but adds value to people and is quality.
And that's the thing. And it's about finding the right way of doing that. And you can get suckered into having to go down the traditional route of marketing and advertising and do all of that, or stand by your guns and use something a bit more subtle like this, which brings you, because obviously we're going to run out of time if we're not careful, because I'll get shouted at as always. But you've known me and the Badgers for quite some time now, and obviously if the opportunity to sort of explain what's so good or so bad about us, but what if you could sort of describe your experiences with us, and for people to kind of get a feeling of that, what would that be like? What would you say to people?
So for me, it's like lots of my clients and friends in business. It's first and foremost, it's about the people. So every interaction from me and from us from the start of our relationship has just always been like easy and friendly, and the work has naturally followed from that. So that's the first bit, it's relationship first. And then second bit is professional, like really good at what you do. And those two things, I think, if you don't have them, then you can do all the fancy bits around the sides and it's hollow. Like, but you do those things really well. And so I've always enjoyed, working with you, interacting with you, and it's always had a good result. And so for me, that's the work I do with a lot of my clients. It's based on those two things.
Like, I pretty much knew that we'd get on when I managed to drag you up to an old Victorian quarry and had you walking around up and down that for half a day.
It was absolutely roasting as well, wasn't it?
You had the coat on and everything.
I had a big jacket on. I got roasted by my friends for that. I don't know what it was like. It was like a super long cardigan top that came down to like my knees, and I don't even know why I wore that day. And I got roasted for that.
Brilliant. It was brilliant. If anybody wants to look at it, if you Google the Elite Sacrifice, you'll find it on YouTube.
But I really enjoyed that piece of work, and we went, down to
that was great,
Sale Sharks, and there was one scene where literally there was a try right by the touchline as we were filming a bit of content on something. It just
nailed it. Yeah,
it was
just nailed this time.
Great project.
Yeah, and God only knows what we'll end up doing next. But so if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Website.
Yep.
Google. Or
Martin,
or any other platform. Martin Robert Hall.
Martin Robert.
That's it. Most active for social media is LinkedIn.
Yep.
That's my most active one. And they're the main two spots.
So look, thanks for coming in today.
Absolute pleasure. Always a pleasure.
We're going to get loads of people asking loads of questions and stuff like that. So looking forward to it. We'll have to talk again, definitely.
Thank you,
Good man.
mate.
Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Good lad. Thank you.
Over the last 5 years, there's been a chase to sort of realise that the visual element of radio can be just as important, especially for growth online. Social media stuff such as made it so that you have to put visual content on to be good on their platforms. The key, and you can see a rise in this, YouTube now is being watched more and more on TV. People love it, and YouTube are putting more money into making their TV app just as good as any other app of Netflix, BBC iPlayer, etc.
I remember we did that talk podcast.
Yes,
because it matters. If it matters to you, then it matters to us. And I think
that's the key. It matters. People who came to see that podcast, all of them were messaging me after. These are the guests that contribute to the show. Over the moon with it, over the moon with how it looked as well.